Let's welcome in Tom Murphy into the program this morning. Tom, we were having some fun with that. I don't know if you saw the story of a Wyoming man trapped ATV for 2 days, and that's what we were discussing before you popped in. But if you were gone for a day, 2, 3, would Bob Holt be the first one to come to your rescue? Who would be the first one to come and try and find you?
I think my wife and my kids probably, but that almost happened to me driving across Wyoming just 1 week ago. I got off somebody's directions. I was driving across the state heading to Casper, and I got into a dirt road in the middle of Wyoming, and there were a bunch of signs that said livestock loose. And sure enough, I went right by cows that were right on the road. It was so beautiful to be in the middle of nowhere like that. But when you don't have phone reception, it gets a little bit shaky. But
isn't that like the most
my family would look for me first.
Isn't that the most unnerving feeling to be somewhere you're not really sure where you're at, you're semi-lost, and you have no phone reception?
Exactly.
And about 8% on your phone battery.
That's no good. But now I had asked for some directions, and I missed one of the directions she gave me, this lady, and that's what my GPS told me was the fastest. It ended up actually getting me to a state highway, but I drove on a dirt road for 8 miles in Wyoming.
Oh, jeez.
Isn't that I have not been to Wyoming, Montana,
Casper, Wyoming.
Most of you. I've been in the airport in Utah. That's about it. I've told my wife that is one trip I want to get in the car. I know it's a long haul, but that is. I think it's some of the most beautiful part of our country, Tom. I can't wait till I got a couple of weeks just to drive around up Yellowstone and just that country. It looks so beautiful when you look up pictures and see it on TV.
Well, let me tell you that I did that for 5 days. I drove around, and it was beautiful. Particularly, Yellowstone is just awe-inspiring. There's everything, every part of your drive, there's something to the left, something to the right, either a geological feature, wildlife, animals, you've got the caldera, the geyser springs, and then you've got the Yellowstone River that goes through with 3 sets of falls. It's just gorgeous. And I tell you, Mount Rushmore, the area, is a lot more lush and green than you would ever expect. It looks dry and dusty because it's on the side of a mountain. But when you get there, when you go from Rapid City to Mount Rushmore, it is green. They get lots of rain. It rained on me while I was there. And the Black Hills are green because they get a good amount of rain. Mm-hmm. So I had a wonderful time out there. It was a speed run. And I went to Bismarck, North Dakota, and here south because I wanted to go to Capitals. If I did it again, I wouldn't do that part of it. I would stay more in Yellowstone and Mount Rushmore area.
And just like Bob Holt next week at SEC Media Days, Old Faithful's there as well. Old Faithful will be at Media Days next week asking the first question of each coach.
He will be there. He very well may ask the first question.
And many more.
Y'all, they're tightening things back a little bit. They're asking which sessions do you plan to be at and all that. And we've
top 40 overall kid according to Perfect Game. Just seeing what you've seen about him, what kind of player is Dave Van Horn getting in Jace Boffrin?
Well, a real solid kid, and you just hope that he can plug in and be productive like some other freshmen. Casey Martin and Heston Kerstad have recently more. Christian Franklin had a freshman here. So hopefully they don't lose Slavens and some other hitters, and he doesn't feel the pressure to, have the weight of the offense on his shoulders to a great extent.
Couple SEC guys taken off the board early in the first round yesterday. Jack Leiter to the Rangers, Kumar Rocker to the Mets, Will Bender to the Giants, Garner Hoagland. And he also had Jordan Wicks out of Conway, who's taken by the Cubs. What does that say about the Southeastern Conference in baseball when you have so many guys selected so early? And how do you think they're going to end up in their potential destinations, Tom?
Yeah, guys get their way to the major leagues and play in the toughest level of college. Come to the SEC right now, and it's true in almost every. I mean, when you have an all-SEC baseball final, and doggone, I feel like the Razorbacks were better than both the teams in the final. I mean, they were 4 against them. And you project that to, softball, maybe not quite the dominance, but still very strong. Football, that's where it's at right now, y'all. And Arkansas had a phenomenal season, number 8 in the NACDA standings, and could have been a little bit better if baseball and softball had finished off their seasons in the final 8 like we thought they might.
Major League Baseball draft resumes at noon today. You think we'll hear Kevin Kopp's name today?
Well, they go through round 4 today? I'm not positive how many rounds, but I think Christian Franklin has a good chance, and Kopp's, and obviously some of the signees will have a good chance of going today as well.
Yeah, I noticed Dave was out watching some players, some of his guys up in the Northeast and Cape Cod and some of that stuff. We look at this transfer portal, and I know he's watching some of his guys, but I'm sure he's got one eye on some guys that aren't his guys right now. That just because the way this transfer portal works, you never know when you're going to need someone based on what happens this week.
Oh, that's absolutely the truth, and they've benefited. And when you think of Travis Ezell and think of Cullen Smith, guys who transferred in, Lyle Lockhart. Where would they have been those last few seasons without some of those guys that really filled roles and big time roles? I mean, I thought Cullen Smith, Jevin Battles had a fine SEC tournament, but I thought Cullen was probably deserving of MVP, and that's what Battles said. But yeah, I just think that Dave Van Horn is really at the top of his game when it comes to evaluating talent, assessing his roster, seeing what their needs are. I mean, Battles was a fantastic one-year shortstop for this team. And so we know that there's going to be a solid nucleus next year with Robert Moore, Wallace, and Charlie Welch, we think, and a couple of other guys. And then hopefully Paulette, hopefully his injury was one that heals and doesn't need surgery. And then you got the makings of a decent starting pitching staff if you got Nolan and possibly Vermillion back. So I think they're just going to find a way to be right back in the national dialogue. And, they might not be number one for, the majority of the season, but I do think they're going to be in the thick of things in the SEC in the country.
Mississippi State proved that being number one all season long doesn't. If your goal is to win the national championship, and I think that's the only goal that really matters, being number one and winning all these other things ultimately don't really matter.
That's absolutely the truth. And they got run-ruled both games of the SEC tournament. And whatever they did when they went home, it worked. Their pitchers got back, McLeod, Bednar, and all those guys got back together and pitched well in the postseason. And they didn't have a North Carolina State show up at their door like Arkansas did, which was unfortunate. But now that Dave Van Horn has won an SEC tournament, perhaps he just doesn't go into a game and say, well, if we lose or win, it doesn't matter to me. And that's why they do what they do at the SEC tournament. But I do think now that getting your pitching lined up for the postseason is a big deal. And I think ultimately Rocker and Leiter's pitch counts got to him a little bit, and coming back fast, got Rocker at the very end. I mean, I think it was 4 days. He came back on 5 days and then 4 days in Nebraska, and ended up not having a great start in the final.
Tom, couple more questions with you before we let you go. This Kansas story out of the Kansas City Star, I mean, Les Miles, Jeff Long, and just a wild stories that have ensued out of that. What did you make of it?
Well, I haven't seen it all, but I do know that it seems like Jeff was determined to hire Les Miles, his buddy. I don't think that was a great combo. So you're going to send me right back in my laptop to check out what's going on in Kansas when we hang up.
Yeah, it's you need to go see that story. It's kind of it's been a wild story again. I'd encourage you to read it. Other news that came out that I saw, just kind of a headline: the XFL is trying to make a return in spring of 2023. Now we've seen this time the CFL, the XFL, the AAF. Is there ever going to be another successful professional non-NFL football league?
Well, it's your definition of success that will make that true or not. I think they're always trying because there's a talent pool, and some of the guys are good enough, a handful, that they could go on and play, go on and make NFL rosters. But the NFL is such a strong brand, and I just don't think there'll ever be anything that will even come close to rivaling the financial windfall that NFL franchises and the league generates. But I do like it that there's a way for guys who are talented in football to, try to make a living out of it. And none of these things last very long, but I guess the best attempt ever was the one that Herschel Walker played for the New Jersey Generals, and Trump was the owner, and the Florida Panthers had a good team. I can't even remember the name of that. Was it the WFL? Whatever that one was.
Yeah, there's been a couple over the years. Last thing before we let you go, I know you're not the biggest Milwaukee Bucks fan since they eliminated your Atlanta Hawks, but Bobby Portis did have himself a good game last night. It was cool to see the entire arena, and not just in the arena, outside the arena, chanting Bobby as soon as he entered the game last night. What do you think he's meant to that team and that fan base as a blue-collar guy, and seeing how he's held up Arkansas every chance he gets?
Oh, man, they love it. And that's the moment, that you live for as a player in any sport, that you come into a game, you're not a starter, but they love you. And he's done very well when he's had to fill in. And I know he had a huge game against the Hawks, and I think it's a role that it's beautiful for him. I mean, yeah, I'd love to see him be a starter in the league again one day in the association, but it's wonderful that they won the game last night and are keeping the series alive.
Well, we'll get a chance to watch Game 4 coming up later this week, get a chance to talk with you later this week on Thursday, Tom, and looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, maybe I can sit down at the table with you guys in Hoover when this thing rolls around next week.
Oh, absolutely. We'll see if they have another Dave and Buster's or something type of event for the media that we can figure out something like we did 2 years ago.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.